My name is Olive Hartman. I'm 31 and I've spent most of my life keeping quiet so no one would call me dramatic. That night, I broke that rule on my own birthday. It happened inside my parents' home in Kansas City, a house that always looked peaceful in pictures, but never felt that way once you stepped inside. The evening started perfectly fine, soft lights, laughter, and a rich chocolate cake in the center of the table. It was my favorite kind, the one my mom used to buy when I was little. For a moment, everything felt calm. Then the front door opened. The sound of heels echoed down the hallway. She was late. She was always late. My sister walked in without a word, her eyes finding the cake before she even looked at me. "You still love that bitter stuff?" she asked, her tone dripping with something colder than sarcasm. I smiled politely. "It's my birthday, Ivy." She stepped closer, a familiar glint in her eyes, that look that always meant trouble was about to start. And before I could even stand, she slid both hands under the cake and dropped it straight into the trash can. The sound, that wet, hollow thud, froze every person in the room. Chocolate streaked down the white trash bag and someone gasped. I didn't move. I didn't shout. I just looked at her and said, "Get out." Ivy smiled, slow and cruel, as if she'd won something invisible. She turned and walked toward the door, leaving behind the smell of frosting and silence. The kind of silence that doesn't fade, it waits. Before I continue, drop a comment with your city and the time. Let's see how far this story reaches tonight. That night opened a door to memories I'd kept locked for too long. It wasn't the cake, or the silence that followed it, was the same sting I'd felt all my life. The house in Kansas City still looked the same, but in my head, I was back to being the little girl who could never win. My sister Ivy Hartman was always the sun, and I was just the shadow that came with it. When we were kids, Mom brushed Ivy's hair every morning in front of the mirror, smiling like she was touching gold. "You have such grace," she'd say, while I sat beside them tying my sneakers. Then she'd look at me. "Olive, be more like your sister." That phrase followed me through childhood like an echo that never stopped. I helped clean the kitchen, got straight A's, never talked back, but it was never enough. Ivy could do no wrong. One afternoon, Ivy broke Mom's favorite crystal vase while spinning in the living room. I ran in with a broom ready to help, but before I could explain, Mom snapped, "How careless can you be, Olive?" I froze, the broom still in my hands. Ivy bit her lip, pretending to be sorry, though her eyes glimmered with satisfaction. That day, I learned in our house truth was optional, but favoritism was not. Dad worked long hours and rarely got involved. When he came home, Mom's word was law, and Ivy was always right. I found peace in school, where teachers saw me for who I was. I joined clubs, won awards, and finally felt seen. But every time I brought home a certificate, Mom barely looked up. "Grades don't matter. Manners do," she'd say, while Ivy showed off a new dress. After a while, I stopped trying to impress her. I started shrinking my success so no one could accuse me of competing. When I left for college, I thought distance might fix things. I was wrong. Mom called me once a week but always asked about Ivy first. Ivy had just started art school out east, and the family threw her a big farewell dinner, balloons, photos, even a prayer. When I got a partial scholarship, Mom just said, "That's nice, dear." That word "nice" hurt more than any insult. 6 months later, Ivy dropped out, but there were no lectures, no disappointment. "She needs time to find herself," Mom said while sending her money every month. When I offered to help pay Dad's hospital bill years later, Mom replied, "You shouldn't have." Ivy feels bad she couldn't. Somehow, even my kindness became another reason to praise her. As adults, the pattern didn't change, it only matured. Ivy's mistakes were misunderstandings. My boundaries were cold. Family dinners were still a stage, and Ivy was still the lead. She talked about her new projects, her friends, her life, while I just nodded. I'd learned to keep quiet to avoid becoming the problem. But silence doesn't make peace. It only hides pain. Every time I came home, I saw the same framed photo of Ivy on the mantel, her graduation picture, even though she never graduated. It made me laugh, but quietly. That's what I'd become, the quiet one, the easy one, the invisible one. I told myself it was fine, that family wasn't supposed to be fair, that mom just loved differently. But deep down, I knew the truth. She didn't see me. Not really. I had spent 30 years trying to be heard by people who only liked their own version of me, obedient, quiet, grateful. The night Ivy threw that cake away, it wasn't about dessert. It was about every moment that led to it. Every time I'd been told to stay calm while she got away with cruelty. Every time silence was mistaken for forgiveness. And as I stood there in that kitchen, I realized that the chocolate cake wasn't the first thing she ever threw away. It was just the last. The cake wasn't just about chocolate, it was about 30 years of swallowing silence. By morning, the house was quiet again, but my phone wasn't. The scent of frosting still lingered in the kitchen, mixed with the faint bitterness of coffee and something heavier embarrassment. I moved slowly, cleaning the mess from the night before, the trash can still half open with bits of chocolate clinging to the rim. My husband Mark offered to help, but I told him I needed a minute alone. There was something strangely peaceful about wiping away the remains of someone else's tantrum. I loaded the dishwasher, grabbed a rag, and noticed the small red light blinking from the security camera on the shelf. I had almost forgotten it was there. Curiosity nudged me. I opened the footage on my phone. The screen lit up with the moment Ivy picked up the cake. Her jaw tight, her eyes daring me to react. The sound of the plate hitting plastic made me flinch, even through the tiny speaker. For a few seconds, I just stared, the video looping back to the beginning, proof that what happened wasn't exaggerated, wasn't imagined. Then my phone buzzed again. A text from her. "You overreacted. It's just cake." I stared at the message, the audacity of it burning hotter than anger. I typed 3 different responses and deleted them all. None of them mattered. I tossed the phone onto the counter and kept cleaning. A few minutes later, Mom called. Her voice was soft, almost rehearsed. "Sweetheart, I talked to your sister this morning. She feels terrible. Don't start any drama, okay? It's not worth it." I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. She threw my birthday cake into the trash. "Mom." Silence. Then she sighed. "I know, honey, but families fight. Just let it go." She always said that, let it go, as if peace required pretending. I didn't answer, just mumbled that I was busy and hung up. An hour later, Dad called. His tone was casual, like he was discussing the weather. "I heard there was some trouble last night," he said. "Ivy just wanted attention. Don't take it seriously." My throat tightened. "You're right," I said flatly. "I won't." When the call ended, I saved the video file to a private folder on my laptop. Mark looked over my shoulder. "You're keeping it?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I might need it." He didn't argue. He just nodded, the way someone does when they know a storm is coming. The rest of the day moved in slow motion. I folded the leftover decorations, washed the dishes again, even though they were clean, anything to keep my hands busy. Outside, Kansas City's winter sky was pale and cold, and the light coming through the curtains looked almost colorless. The quiet was heavy, not peaceful. Every buzz of my phone made me jump, expecting another message, another reminder that Ivy was rewriting the story in her favor. I didn't reply to any of them. Mark suggested we go for a drive, but I stayed on the couch scrolling through photos from the party pictures taken just minutes before everything fell apart. Everyone's smiling, eyes bright, unaware of the chaos that would follow. I zoomed in on Ivy's face in the group shot. She was already frowning, already distant. Maybe she'd come planning to ruin it. Maybe that was the point. By evening, my inbox was full of messages from relatives. "What happened?" "Your mom said there was a misunderstanding." Ivy sounded so upset. It amazed me how fast her version spread. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the video again, watched it once more, and this time I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. The clip wasn't about the cake, it was about proof. Proof that for once I hadn't imagined being treated like I didn't matter. Proof that the person everyone adored could be cruel when no one was looking. I closed the laptop, exhaled slowly, and leaned back. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to explain myself. I wasn't defending, fixing, or smoothing things over. I just let the silence stay. I thought maybe if I ignored it long enough, the situation would fade the way it always did. Families forget. People move on. But deep down, something told me this time would be different. I could feel it. The air was too still, the quiet too sharp. The storm hadn't passed. It was gathering. The next morning, I woke up to 50 missed calls and a video I never made. My phone kept vibrating on the nightstand like it was panicking for me. I grabbed it expecting maybe a work update or messages from friends checking in about the party. Instead, the first notification froze me. Olive Hartman posted a new status. The caption read, "Some people show their true colors at family events." Underneath, a crying emoji and a heart. Nothing else. Yet it already had hundreds of likes and shares. Comments flooded in, people asking what happened, others comforting her, calling me cold, without knowing a single detail. I scrolled further and my stomach tightened. She'd uploaded a short video just 15 seconds long. The thumbnail was my kitchen. My voice, sharp but calm, echoed through the phone. "Get out." The clip ended there, cutting before she dropped the cake. In her version, I looked like the monster, an ungrateful, angry sister kicking out her own flesh and blood on her birthday. The timing was perfect, the editing ruthless. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. Mark leaned over, sleepy and confused. "What's wrong?" he asked. I just handed him the phone. He watched in silence, then whispered, "She posted this publicly." I nodded. "It's everywhere." By the time I opened my laptop, the post had spread across every platform. Someone had screen recorded it, reposted it with captions like, "Some people never appreciate family." Strangers I'd never met were dissecting my life in comment sections. My phone buzzed nonstop. Friends from college texted, "Hey, are you okay? What's this video about?" I didn't respond. My hands shook too much to type. Around noon, I got an email from HR. The subject line made my stomach drop. "Meeting request urgent." I worked as a project coordinator for a design firm in downtown Kansas City, a place that prided itself on team harmony. When I walked into the conference room, my supervisor and the HR manager were already seated, faces polite but wary. Olive, my manager, started, "We saw some online activity involving you. It's probably nothing, but it's drawing attention." The HR manager added gently, "We understand it's a private matter, but because your name and face are visible, it's affecting our brand image." I opened my phone and played the original security footage from the camera, the full clip showing Ivy throwing the cake, me standing still saying almost nothing. For a moment, the room was silent except for the hum of the AC. My supervisor exhaled. "That's quite different from the version online." I nodded. "It usually is." HR cleared her throat. "We recommend not engaging publicly. These things blow over faster if you don't feed the fire." I wanted to laugh at that "don't feed the fire." Easy advice from people who'd never been burned. Still, I said nothing. They thanked me for being professional and suggested I take a few days off to let things settle. Before I left, my supervisor added, "We'll temporarily reassign your project tasks to avoid distraction." In the elevator down to the lobby, my reflection looked pale and unfamiliar. I wasn't angry yet. I was hollow. People passing by probably thought I was just another office worker having a rough morning, not someone whose reputation was being torn apart by her own sister. Back home, I sat on the couch, scrolling through comment sections like watching a slow-motion car crash I couldn't stop. Who treats family like that? Poor Ivy, she deserves better. Some sisters are just jealous. The words blurred into noise, but the sting stayed. I turned off the phone, tossed it onto the coffee table, and stared at the blank TV screen. Mark came in quietly, set down a cup of tea beside me, and said, "You don't have to prove anything to anyone." His voice was calm, but I could hear the anger underneath. I took the cup, hands trembling. They think I'm the villain, I said softly. They always have, he replied. The afternoon dragged into evening, my inbox filled with messages from coworkers, half curious, half cautious. A few defended me privately, but most stayed silent. I could tell people were picking sides even if they didn't say it out loud. When the sun dipped below the horizon, I walked to the window and looked out at the streetlights flickering on. For years, I'd cleaned up Ivy's chaos, her lies, her apologies, her messes. But this time, something felt different. My humiliation wasn't private anymore, it had a comment section. And for once, I wasn't going to clean up her mess quietly. A few days later, Mom called, her voice trembling like she knew what was coming. She didn't say much, just that Dad wanted everyone to talk things out. The tone in her voice wasn't a request. It was an obligation. I agreed, though. My chest tightened the moment I hung up. By the time I pulled into the driveway of my parents' home in Kansas City, the winter air had turned sharp enough to sting my skin. Through the living room window, I saw Ivy's car already parked outside. Of course, she was early. She always was whenever there was a performance to give. Inside, the air felt colder than the weather. Mom sat at the dining table, hands clasped around a cup of tea she wasn't drinking. Dad stood by the window pretending to read the newspaper. Ivy sat opposite them, her makeup flawless, her expression carefully fragile. Olive Mom started, her voice soft but strained. We just want to fix this. Families shouldn't fight in public. I pulled out a chair but didn't sit. Then maybe families shouldn't humiliate each other in public either. Mom flinched, glancing at Ivy, who instantly teared up on cue. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she said, her voice breaking just enough to sound believable. People twisted it. I was just hurt. I raised an eyebrow. Hurt? You edited a video and posted it to thousands of strangers. Ivy sniffed dramatically. You made me look bad, first, Olive. Everyone thinks I'm the villain because of your reaction. Because of my reaction, I said, keeping my voice calm. You threw my cake into the trash, Ivy. Enough, Dad interrupted, lowering the newspaper he hadn't read. She made a mistake, but she's still your sister. We're not choosing sides. I met his eyes. You always say that when it means protecting her. What about me? He frowned. You're stronger. She's more sensitive. You know how she is. I laughed under my breath. Yes, I do. I know exactly how she is. Mom's voice cracked. Please, can't we just let this go? The neighbors are starting to talk. I turned toward her slowly. You care more about the neighbors than about what she did to me? Her eyes darted away. That's not true. But her silence said otherwise. Ivy dabbed her eyes with a tissue. I just want my reputation back. People at work are whispering. You ruined my name. I exhaled, reached into my bag, and pulled out my phone. Fine, I said. Let's watch the whole thing together. The room went still. I pressed play. The sound of laughter from the birthday party filled the room, followed by the thud of cake hitting plastic Ivy's face, twisted in anger, and my voice quiet, steady, saying, Get out. The clip ended. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Dad cleared his throat. She made a mistake, but she's still your sister. His repetition landed differently this time, heavier, emptier. I looked at him and said softly, And I'm still your daughter, but you never defended me. The silence that followed was louder than shouting. Ivy stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. This is ridiculous. You're enjoying this, aren't you? She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. Mom called after her, but Ivy didn't turn back. The echo lingered. I stared at the door a moment longer, then turned to my parents. You wanted peace? I said. This is it. I walked toward the hallway, my boots clicking against the hardwood floor. Mom's voice cracked behind me. Olive, wait, please. I stopped, but I didn't look back. You always told me not to make trouble, I said quietly. But trouble was the only language you ever heard from her. I opened the door and stepped out into the cold air. The wind stung my cheeks, but it felt cleaner than the air inside that house. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty for walking away. I felt free. That night I realized silence had never protected me. It only protected her. For years, I'd mistaken quiet for peace, endurance for strength. But sitting alone in my apartment, replaying Ivy's fake tears in my mind, I finally understood that silence had only made me invisible. I opened my laptop and started typing names. People who'd once worked with her, studied with her, dated her, trusted her. The list was longer than I expected. I started with Claire, a former co-worker of Ivy's from a marketing firm in St. Louis. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but when I messaged her, the reply came within minutes. I'm not surprised she's causing trouble again. What did she do this time? We spoke over a video call that lasted almost an hour. Claire showed me screenshots of old messages where Ivy had bragged about manipulating clients to get free samples using my name as a reference to seem credible. She said you were her business partner, Claire explained. That's how she got deals. My stomach churned. Then came Michael, one of Ivy's old friends from college. He sent me an audio recording, her voice unmistakable, saying people believe anything if you sound emotional enough. Each new piece of evidence painted the same picture, a pattern of deceit polished over years. Within 48 hours, I had messages, screenshots, and recordings from 6 different people. Some were angry, others almost relieved to finally talk about it. One email stood out from the rest. The subject line read, "You should know this." Inside was a short note from a woman named Denise, who worked at a small skincare company. Your sister used your name to get free products for her social media review account. When we asked for proof of partnership, she blocked us. She attached the receipts and a screenshot of Ivy's old profile with my name tagged under collaboration. I stared at the evidence folder on my desktop. Dozens of files, each one a small lie that had finally found daylight. I didn't feel joy. I didn't even feel anger anymore. Just clarity. Mark came into the room quietly. "Are you sure you want to post it?" he asked. "Once it's out there, you can't take it back." I nodded. She wanted an audience. I'll give her one. I spent the next 2 hours editing. No dramatic music, no insults. No narration, just timestamps, facts, and faces. The first clip showed Ivy throwing the cake. Then screenshots faded in emails, texts, voice recordings. The final slide read, "Here's what really happened and what always happens." When I uploaded it, I didn't expect much, but within an hour, the views climbed fast. People began sharing it with captions like, "Finally, the full story and proof speaks louder than tears." The comment section became a flood of support. I knew something was off about that first video. This woman deserves an apology. Never underestimate quiet people, they're just gathering evidence. By morning, the video had hundreds of thousands of views. Ivy's original post had vanished, her account deleted. A few of her old friends posted vague messages about truth catching up. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Mom sent a text, "We saw the video. We just want this to stop." Dad didn't message at all. For once, their silence didn't sting, it felt like admission. I stepped out onto the balcony, the city still half asleep under the early light. For years, I'd carried the weight of defending myself quietly, waiting for fairness to appear on its own. But fairness doesn't come when you stay silent, it comes when you show what's real. The wind picked up, brushing my hair against my cheek. Somewhere out there, Ivy was facing what she'd built with her own hands. And for the first time, I didn't feel small under her shadow. The truth didn't need me to shout. It only needed to be seen. Within a week of my video going viral, Ivy's world began to collapse in slow motion. Her sponsors pulled out one by one, brands issuing short statements like, "We do not condone dishonest representation." The PR agency she worked with removed her photo from their website overnight. By Friday, her email bounced back with an automated message, This account no longer exists. The ripples spread fast. Her neighbors, once eager to wave across the lawn, now turned away. Mutual friends left the group chats she'd created, the ones where she used to brag about brand deals and managing her image. Screenshots of her old posts resurfaced with comments dissecting every fake moment she'd ever staged. The internet never forgets, but it does love a reckoning. Mom tried to defend her online, at first posting vague comments like, "We all make mistakes. Please stop the hate." But the responses came swiftly. Mistakes don't come with receipts. She deleted her comment within an hour. Dad stayed silent. His silence said more than words ever could. One morning, an envelope slid under my apartment door. The logo on the corner was from a law firm. Inside was a letter from Ivy's attorney demanding I cease and desist and remove the video for defamation. The tone was formal, threatening, desperate. Mark read it over my shoulder and said quietly, "They're bluffing." I called the lawyer listed at the bottom, gave my name, and said, "Every file in that video is real and time-stamped. If you'd like, I can send you copies for reference." The call ended within 3 minutes. The letter was never followed up. 2 days later, Dad showed up at my door. He looked smaller somehow, his shoulders hunched, his usual calm replaced by guilt. I hadn't seen him since the family meeting. He held his hat in both hands, twisting it slowly. "Olive," he said, "I should have seen it sooner. I wanted peace so badly I ignored the truth." For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to comfort him. I simply nodded. "You still can see it?" I said softly, but from a distance. He swallowed hard and nodded, eyes glassy. "I understand." When he left, I closed the door gently, not angrily. There was no satisfaction in being right, just relief in being done. Meanwhile, Ivy moved back into our parents' house. Her apartment lease ended early when her landlord decided not to renew. Too much attention, he'd told her, according to Mom. The sponsorships dried up completely. Her so-called friends stopped answering. The glossy image she'd built for years shattered, leaving nothing but silence and whispers. Sometimes people online tagged me in her old photos as if to ask whether I felt vindicated. I never responded. Justice isn't about celebration, it's about clarity. Weeks later, I received an unexpected email from my old manager at the design firm. The subject line read, "Opportunity Chicago Branch." They'd seen how I handled everything publicly, quiet, factual, steady, and wanted me to lead a new project team, a promotion and relocation all in one. I reread the email twice, half disbelieving. Chicago. A fresh start. That evening, I drove through downtown Kansas City one last time. The skyline glowed under the sunset, familiar but smaller than I remembered. I parked by the bridge overlooking the river, the same place Mark and I had gone on our first date. The water shimmered gold, and for a moment I thought of everything that had led here: the cake, the silence, the storm, and finally, the calm. When I got home, I packed my things quietly. Just essentials. The rest could stay behind. Before closing the last box, I found an old family photo, Mom, Dad, Ivy, and me, all smiling like we believed in that illusion. I placed it in the drawer instead of the suitcase. Some memories are better left in the house they belong to. As the night deepened, Mark asked, "Do you think she'll ever change?" I thought for a long time before answering. "Maybe," I said. "But I won't be around to find out." When we finally pulled out of the driveway the next morning, the air felt lighter. The city shrank in the rearview mirror, but my chest felt wide open. The truth had echoed long enough. Now it was time to live without it chasing me. A year later, I stood in the same kitchen, same walls, same silence, different me. The late afternoon light spilled through the blinds, touching the countertop where that cake once stood. I wasn't haunted by it anymore. It was just marble sunlight and peace. I had returned to Kansas City for a short visit, nothing more than a weekend to see my parents. I didn't tell Ivy I was coming, and I had no plans to. Some doors stay closed for a reason. Mom hugged me at the doorway, her arms tentative like she wasn't sure she was allowed. "You look good," she said softly. Her hair had more gray now, her eyes tired but kind. Dad smiled faintly from the living room, as if trying to offer quiet support. We talked about safe things, the weather, the new neighbors, the tomatoes in the backyard. The word Ivy never crossed anyone's lips. That night, Mom handed me an envelope before I went upstairs. "I wrote something for you," she whispered. The handwriting on the front was familiar. Neat, careful, guilt-ridden. I waited until the house was quiet before opening it. The letter was long. "Apologies, regrets, the kind of sorrow that comes too late to change anything. We didn't realize how much we hurt you by trying to keep peace. I see now peace without fairness isn't peace at all." I read it once, folded it neatly, and put it back in the envelope. I didn't respond. Forgiveness didn't need to be announced. Sometimes it was enough just to stop carrying the weight. The next morning, I drove across town to pick up a cake. The same bakery, the same scent of cocoa and vanilla that wrapped around me like a memory. The woman behind the counter smiled. "Birthday again?" I nodded. "Yes. Chocolate, please." I didn't say for whom it was mine this time. Back home, Mark had set up 2 candles on the table, one for each of us. "Small party," he said. "Just how you like it." We ate quietly, the frosting soft and rich. He leaned back in his chair and said, "You know that's the best revenge piece?" I smiled, shaking my head. "No, it's not revenge. It's closure." He laughed gently. "Same difference." "Not really," I said. "Revenge keeps you tied to them. Closure lets you walk away." Later, I logged into the online group I'd started 6 months ago, The Quiet Ones. A space for people who grew up unheard, overshadowed, or blamed for keeping the peace. Hundreds of members now shared their stories every week. Some wrote about siblings who took everything, some about parents who never defended them. I replied to as many as I could. "You're not alone," I typed to one. "Your worth doesn't need their validation." Each message felt like closing another old wound, not with anger, but understanding. Healing wasn't loud. It was slow, steady, and quietly radical. Before midnight, I sat by the window looking out at the city lights. They shimmered like tiny second chances. A year ago, I'd thought peace meant silence. Now I knew better. Peace isn't what others give you, it's what you stop giving away. I blew out the candle, one last flame flickering in the dark. The room smelled of chocolate and calm. Maybe that was the real lesson: some things fall apart so you can finally breathe in the space they leave behind. "Thank you for staying till the end," I whispered, imagining the audience on the other side of the screen. If you've ever had to choose peace over family, share your story below. I read everyone.